Welcome to Fearless Finances, where I try to take the fear out of your finances. Today, we are taking our discussion out to the macro level again. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about capitalism and if it works. You see, a bright young adult got me thinking about this. I was watching a permaculture video, Angela. I'll note her in the doobly-doo. She's awesome in getting people motivated about the political climate right now, keeping you up to date on great information that's out there. And I was watching this video about how unsustainable capitalism is. And when I got done watching this entire video, and I'll put it in the doobly-doo so that you may watch it, this bright young adult said to me, well, if we didn't have capitalism, what would we do to motivate people? Good question. How many think that's a good question? And when asked this question, I didn't have a good answer in the moment. I hate when I miss those opportunities, but then I thought of this. Does anyone out there know the insulin story? This wonderful concoction that saved many, many million lives since its creation in 1923. Let me give you the abbreviated version of this story. The three physicians that worked on the research for insulin, once they found it, once they had it, they patented it, and then they sold it for $1. You heard me right. $1. By the way, these researchers were from the University of Toronto. Yes, a Canadian city. Just another way the Canadians have helped us when indeed someone else has been a little mean to them. Not very nice, Mr. Trump. But back to our researchers. They sold it for $1, just $1, because they did not believe that anyone should have to pay a lot of money for something that saves their lives. So they did not want to charge a lot of money for this research. So this is what I tell you. The thing that can motivate people, other than capitalism, is compassion. Now I know you might think that's pie in the sky, that's silliness. I know Elon Musk thinks that empathy is a weakness, but there's people like me and lots of other people. I was just listening to AOC give a great speech down in Phoenix, or I think it was Phoenix, or was it Las Vegas? I don't know, but it was awesome. I'll put the link for it down below in the doobly-doo. Because this is the thing. She was talking about all of us being on a team, and being on a team that we're willing to do stuff for other people. And if you're somebody who is not willing to sacrifice or help another, don't come on our team. It's all right. You got that. You got that team. You have that team. Enjoy that team. But our team, we want to care about other people. So compassion can be a motivator. Think about the work that these three scientists had to put in to come up with this. And they willingly sold it for $1. And think about how that philosophy could change the entire world. When we start to think of those kids that are starving over in Africa because Elon Musk turned off their U.S. aid. And by the way, that U.S. aid money was mine and yours and every other taxpayer here in the United States. They had no right to do that. Our elected officials had approved that. And if they wanted to take it away, if they really thought it was waste, fraud, and abuse, go back to Congress and get a law passed. And let us know what the heck is going on. Because I care about those children in Africa. And the richest nation of the world can care for people. I also trust the people who are in charge who make these decisions. And I also trust that when people are that compassionate, when they care about other people in the world, that they'll try to just do the right thing. That's not what I'm seeing with this. And here's another thought about compassion. As it gets the wheels in an economy working, people then treat their coworkers better. They treat their employees better. They really start to think about the golden rule. It's something we all know. It's part of absolutely every single religion. Treat other people the way that you'd like to be treated. I don't think that's what Elon Musk is doing. Is he treating other people the way he'd like to be? Is that what Trump is doing? Is that what Stephen Miller is doing when he put all of those men on a plane and sent them down to El Salvador without due process? Due process is compassion. So let's get back to where we started this conversation. What kind of economy Sweden has? Now, I know there's a lot of people out there, Republicans and MAGA and everybody else, who tries to say that if you don't have capitalism, you have socialism. Socialism is not the sort of economy that most industrialized nations have. In fact, if we look at a country like Sweden, one that we would think ranges more on the socialist spectrum, they actually have something called a competitive open mixed economy. I think that sounds kind of good. This is characterized by a strong welfare state, a high degree of private ownership, and a focus on export-oriented industries. And I also remember Donald J. essentially saying that he wanted immigrants to come from Sweden. And now, which I just think is horrible, he wants to try to take Canada into the United States. Well, they're a little bit socialist for you, aren't they, Donald J? It even says right here in Google that Sweden has a capitalist and socialist economy. The two can intermix. You see, when we throw compassion and care for others into the mix, it makes an enormous difference in the way capitalism looks. In fact, let's go back and actually just look at what socialism really is. Socialism is an economic and political philosophy encompassing diverse, oh my gosh, I don't think the Trump administration could have this in there because we have no diversity. I don't know. Diverse economic and social systems characterized by social ownership of the means of production as opposed to private ownership. It describes the economic, political, and social theories and movements associated with the implementation of such systems. This is why you might hear that some countries have socialized medicine and other countries like the United States do not. And I know here in the United States, frequently we hear that socialized medicine is not something that we want. But the interesting thing about that is the countries who have it, and there's many, the United States is an outlier. We're one of the few who have the sort of healthcare system that we have, which really is a for-profit system. It's a capitalist system, which doesn't seem to be working well for everyone. But I digress. Those that have the socialized system of medicine aren't complaining. Those that have the socialized system of medicine aren't looking at changing it. Many countries have it, and not many are looking at changing it. Interesting. Now, in future videos, I'm going to go through different healthcare systems, and I'm going to take you around the world and show you what some of those healthcare systems do, the good and bad. And I will just quite simply tell you the United States could benefit by starting to talk about what we could do about healthcare in this nation. That's one of the many reasons I was highly disappointed when Trump was elected, because he had formulations of a plan for healthcare that he hasn't yet started talking about. By the way, I know lots of billionaires are getting a bad rap right now. Lots of them. But I got to tell you, there's some other ones who have been out there saying that this is what billionaires need to do, that they need to start thinking more of the working class, because the more empowered the working class is, the more financially secure we are, the more sustainable our entire economy is. Without people having money to spend on goods and services, businesses do not thrive. In fact, here is a video from Nick Hanauer talking about his philosophy as a billionaire.
Probably don't know me, but I am one of those 0.01 percenters that you hear about and read about, and I am by any reasonable definition a plutocrat. And tonight, what I would like to do is speak directly to other plutocrats, to my people, because it feels like it's time for us all to have a chat. Like most plutocrats, I too am a proud and unapologetic capitalist. I have founded, co-founded, or funded over 30 companies across a range of industries. I was the first non-family investor in Amazon.com. I co-founded a company called The Quantive that we sold to Microsoft for $6.4 billion. My friends and I, we own a bank. I tell you this, unbelievable, right? I tell you this to show that my life is like most plutocrats. I have a broad perspective on capitalism and business, and I've been rewarded obscenely for that with a life that most of y'all can't even imagine. Multiple homes, a yacht, my own plane, etc., etc., etc. But let's be honest, I am not the smartest person you've ever met. I am certainly not the hardest working. I was a mediocre student. I'm not technical at all. I can't write a word of code. Truly, my success is the consequence of spectacular luck, of birth, of circumstance, and of timing. So what do I see in our future today, you ask? I see pitchforks, as in angry mobs with pitchforks. Because while people like us plutocrats are living beyond the dreams of avarice, the other 99% of our fellow citizens are falling farther and farther behind. You see, the problem isn't that we have some inequality. Some inequality is necessary for a high-functioning capitalist democracy. The problem is that inequality is at historic highs today, and it's getting worse every day. And if wealth, power, and income continue to concentrate at the very tippy top, our society will change from a capitalist democracy to a neo-feudalist rentier society like 18th century France. That was, you know, France before the revolution and the mobs with the pitchforks. So I have a message for my fellow plutocrats and zillionaires, and for anyone who lives in a gated bubble world. Wake up, wake up. It cannot last. Because if we do not do something to fix the glaring economic inequities in our society, the pitchforks will come for us. For no free and open society can long sustain this kind of rising economic inequality. It has never happened. There are no examples. You show me a highly unequal society and I will show you a police state or an uprising. The pitchforks will come for us if we do not address this. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And it will be terrible when they come for everyone, but particularly for people like us plutocrats. I know I must sound like some liberal do-gooder. I'm not. I'm not making a moral argument that economic inequality is wrong. What I'm arguing is that rising economic inequality is stupid and ultimately self-defeating. Rising inequality doesn't just increase our risks from pitchforks, but it's also terrible for business too. So the model for us rich guys should be Henry Ford. When Ford famously introduced the $5 day, which was twice the prevailing wage at the time, he didn't just increase the productivity of his factories, he converted exploited auto workers who were poor into a thriving middle class who could now afford to buy the products that they made. Ford intuited what we now know is true, that an economy is best understood as an ecosystem and characterized by the same kinds of feedback loops you find in a natural ecosystem. A feedback loop between customers and businesses. Raising wages increases demand, which increases hiring, which in turn increases wages and demand and profits. And that virtuous cycle of increasing prosperity is precisely what is missing from today's economic recovery. And this is why we need to put behind us the trickle-down policies that so dominate both political parties and embrace something I call middle-out economics. Middle-out economics rejects the neoclassical economic idea that economies are efficient, linear, mechanistic, that they tend towards equilibrium and fairness, and instead embraces the 21st century idea that economies are complex, adaptive, ecosystemic, that they tend away from equilibrium and toward inequality, that they're not efficient at all, but are effective if well managed. We plutocrats need to get this trickle-down economics thing behind us, this idea that the better we do, the better everyone else will do. It's not true. How could it be? I earn 1,000 times the median wage, but I do not buy 1,000 times as much stuff, do I? I actually bought 2 pairs of these pants, what my partner Mike calls my manager pants. I could have bought 2,000 pairs, but what would I do with them? How many haircuts can I get? How often can I go out to dinner? No matter how wealthy a few plutocrats get, we can never drive a great national economy. Only a thriving middle class can do that. There's nothing to be done, my plutocrat friends might say. Henry Ford was in a different time. Maybe we can't do some things. Maybe we can do some things. It happened because a group of us reminded the middle class that they are the source of growth and prosperity in capitalist economies. We reminded them that when workers have more money, businesses have more customers and need more employees. We reminded them that when businesses pay workers a living wage, taxpayers are relieved of the burden of funding the poverty programs like food stamps and medical assistance and rent assistance that those workers need. We reminded them that low-wage workers make terrible taxpayers, and that when you raise the minimum wage for all businesses benefit, yet all can compete. Now, the orthodox reaction, of course, is raising the minimum wage costs jobs, right? Your politicians always echoing that trickle-down idea by saying things like, well, if you raise the price of employment, guess what happens? You get less of it. Are you sure? Because there's some contravening evidence. Since 1980, the wages of CEOs in our country have gone from about 30 times the median wage to 500 times. That's raising the price of employment. And yet, to my knowledge, I have never seen a company outsource its CEO's job, automate their job, export the job to China. In fact, we appear to be employing more CEOs and senior managers than ever before. So too for technology workers and financial services workers who earn multiples of the median wage, and yet we employ more and more of them. So clearly, you can raise the price of employment and get more of it. That if the poor get richer, that will be bad for the economy. This is nonsense. So can we please dispense with this rhetoric that says that rich guys like me and my plutocrats friends made our country? We plutocrats know, even if we don't like to admit it in public, that if we had been born somewhere else, not here in the United States, we might very well be just some dude standing barefoot by the side of a dirt road selling fruit. It's not that they don't have good entrepreneurs in other places, even very, very poor places. It's just that that's all that those entrepreneurs, customers can afford. So here's an idea for a new kind of economics, a new kind of politics that I call new capitalism. Let's acknowledge that capitalism beats the alternatives, but also that the more people we include, both as entrepreneurs and as customers, the better it works. Let's by all means shrink the size of government, but not by slashing the poverty programs, but by ensuring that workers are paid enough so that they actually don't need those programs. Let's invest enough in the middle class to make our economy fairer and more inclusive, and by fairer, more truly competitive. And by more truly competitive, more able to generate the solutions to human problems that are the true drivers of growth and prosperity. Government does create prosperity and growth by creating the conditions that allow both entrepreneurs and their customers to thrive. Balancing the power of capitalists like me and workers isn't bad for capitalism. It's essential to it. Programs like a reasonable minimum wage, affordable health care, paid sick leave, and the progressive taxation necessary to pay for the important infrastructure necessary to the middle class, like education, R&D. Plutocrats like me have always needed to find persuasive stories to tell everyone else about why our relative positions are morally righteous and good for everyone. Like, we are indispensable, the job creators, and you are not. Like, tax cuts for us create growth, but investments in you will balloon our debt and bankrupt our great country. That we matter, that you don't. For thousands of years, these stories were called divine right. Today, we have trickle-down economics. How obviously, transparently self-serving all of this is. We plutocrats need to see that the United States of America made us, not the other way around. That a thriving middle class is the source of prosperity in capitalist economies, not a consequence of it. And we should never forget that even the best of us, in the worst of circumstances, are barefoot by the side of a dirt road selling fruit. Fellow plutocrats, I think it may be time for us to recommit to our country, to commit to a new kind of capitalism which is both more inclusive and more effective. A capitalism that will ensure that America's economy remains the most dynamic and prosperous in the world. Let's secure the future for ourselves, our children, and their children. Or alternatively, we could do nothing. Hide in our gated communities and private schools, enjoy our planes and yachts, they're fun, and wait for the pitchforks. Thank you.
So this is the thing. I'm not really ready to grab a pitchfork. That's not my style. I'm not violent. But I am ready to take to the streets and take our government back and start to throw some compassion in the mix. Say what you will about Mr. Joe Biden, but that man cared. He cared about the American people, and he cared about other nations of the world. You see, not only do we need compassion in our business leaders, we would be well served by having compassion in our politicians, in our churches, in every corner. So I hope you get on board with compassionate capitalists and mix a little socialism in there. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. If you, like me, are getting a little tired of people with too much money, taking too much control, and not leaving enough left over for us, I suggest you watch this video about the 3.5% rule. It doesn't take much for us to make a change. I'll see you there.